a quick training with everyone's permission to go over what we're actually doing, but we're targeting some of our Congress members to sign on to the letter by Ilhan Omar, as well as Representative Garcia, as well as the letter that was just recently put together by AOC, as well as Senator Sanders. And we're going to take Twitter by storm. So if you are interested in joining this campaign, which I'm hoping every single one of you would be pro lifting the sanctions on those countries, I will share my email with you. Please send me a brief bio and your contact information, and I'm more than happy to contact you so we can get this started. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Hanieh. Medea, you have a few updates too.
Yes, if anybody is not muted, if you could mute, there's a little interference on the line. A couple of quick updates following up on Hanieh said about Iran. We're very concerned that, at least publicly, there's been no move on part of the Biden administration to rejoin the Iran nuclear deal. We're on day 27 of that administration. And with the looming date of February 21st, when the Iranian parliament says they're going to boost the enrichment of uranium and reduce nuclear inspections, we have to move quickly. So we're part of a large coalition of groups that is really pushing the Biden administration to go quickly to what's called compliance for compliance. On the Yemen front, we've been talking on these calls and had Congressman Ro Khanna with us about the great move by the Biden administration to say no offensive weapons to Saudi Arabia and a hold on the Emirates, but we're trying to find out what that really means. And we're part of 50 organizations that just sent a letter to the administration saying we need clarification of that, and we want to block all shipments to Saudi Arabia and the Emirates, as well as any services and logistics support that is used in the war in Yemen, and he's turning that into a letter that he's going to ask Congress people to sign on, going to the Biden administration. And then in terms of Saudi Arabia, I don't know if the last time one of the women activists who's been imprisoned for 1,001 days was released, Lujain al-Hul. We're very excited about that, except she's not allowed to travel. She's not allowed to speak out or to be in any groupings that might talk about these issues. And so she's not really free. So we're working to get her those restrictions lifted and to call for the release of the other women political prisoners. And then you might have heard that there was a contractor killed in Kurdistan in Iraq just recently, and this is a worrisome escalation of tensions, but it brings up issue of when is this administration really going to withdraw troops? Is it going to keep us in these endless wars, whether it's in Iraq or in Afghanistan, where the May 1st deadline is looming, that was agreed upon under the Trump administration for reducing troops to 2,500. So we are pushing in both of those cases for those reductions to continue. And this Friday, there's a congressional hearing on Afghanistan called Pathways to Peace, but we're worried that it really won't be the Pathways to Peace because it's looking at a congressional study on Afghanistan that kind of said we should stay in there indefinitely. So we have to keep pushing to get out of the endless wars that Joe Biden has said he will get us out of.
All right, thank you very much, Medea. I was going to give some updates as well, but we do have Barbara Lee on the phone with us. Representative Lee, are you there? You saw her name.
I'm here.
You're here. Great. We're so thrilled that you and Congressman Pocan are with us tonight to talk about the House Defense Spending Reduction Caucus. And before you begin, Alan wants to introduce you, Alan Minsky.
You need to unmute there. Hello, Representative Barbara Lee, Alan Minsky with Progressive Democrats of America. I actually wanted to say, even as a way of starting off, is that the other day I was on the call with somebody who described themselves as a Shirley Chisholm Democrat. And so I went over. Oh, I think someone needs to mute.
Okay, we're going to ask everybody to please mute yourself.
Well, I went on to one of the popular film platforms, and I watched Chisholm 72 Unbought and Unbossed, with a great and brilliant co-starring appearance by Representative Barbara Lee. So I encourage everybody to do that. PDA was founded in 2004, and Representative Barbara Lee has been our guiding light ever since our organization came into existence. In 2001, Representative Lee took what is simply one of the bravest votes in the history of the American Congress, the sole vote against the authorization for use of military force in Afghanistan. And 20 years on, it stands not only just as one of the bravest votes in American history, but one of the truest and most prescient. We are absolutely thrilled at PDA with the new initiative that you and Representative Pocan are initiating, the Defense Spending Reduction Caucus. I think we're going to put as much institutional support as we can. And so I think I'm within the law to say that on our House of Representative candidate questionnaire, we will have a question. Will you join the Defense Spending Reduction Caucus? But look, I was born in Alta Bates Hospital, so I always consider you to be one of my representatives in the truest of senses. I am so honored to introduce you, Representative Barbara Lee.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alan. I'm glad to see you. Where are you now?
I'm in Los Angeles. I'm in Los Angeles.
Okay.
I've been out here for, I've been the ED of PDA. We met twice in the halls of Congress, and half of the time now, of course, it's all been COVID, and hopefully we'll all see each other again soon. Yeah.
Hopefully so, but thank you so much. And you know, PDA is very dear to my heart, as is CODEPINK, and so many of you, all of you on this call in your organizations. But I was with Tim Carpenter in Roxbury when we founded CODEPINK. And I remember organizing the very first meeting on the Hill for Tim and Nancy Pelosi, and sitting in Nancy's office and talking about PDA and its agenda. And I just have to say, I'm so excited and proud of where PDA has been and has come, because never has PDA lost its progressive vision of where we need to go as a country and the world, but also really understands the legislative process. And I'd say very practical progressives are in PDA. And so just thank you for keeping Tim's spirit and legacy alive, and how pleased I am that things are going in the correct direction in terms of organizing the political support for our agenda. So thank you, Alan, so much. And to Medea, hi, how are you doing? And I know Marcy's on, and so many of my friends. It's good to see everybody.
Thank you so much for being on with us.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting to be here this evening. It's we've come a long way, but have a long way to go. And as you know, I'm chairing now the subcommittee on state and foreign operations, which is all of our non-defense related, initiatives, which includes the funding, of course, of all of that. And it's been a long time coming, but hopefully some of our priorities can be part of our agenda of the committee. Of course, it's still a bipartisan committee. We still naturally have many issues to deal with, but I'm hoping we can reframe and reshape our priorities to make sure that diplomacy and development and preventing wars and preventing violence becomes the standard of our committee. And of course, the funding, I've talked to Congresswoman Betty McCollum, she chairs the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, and I chair, of course, State Foreign Ops. So I'm trying to figure out how to get some of her money into my subcommittee. So we're going to be very creative in what we do this year. But is Mark on? And I just want to say hi to Mark Pocan, because this is quite a movement that we've developed. And I think last year just shows what we can do and what you can do, because it never would have happened without yourselves and without Mark and without us on the inside. And the Defense Reduction Caucus, we know and recognize how defense spending is just totally out of control. You all have known that from day one. I worked in the past for our beloved Congressman Ron Dellums, and he came to Congress fighting against the massive expenditures of the Pentagon, calling for a rational national defense, supporting our troops, but never in the world would we have thought we had gotten to 740 billion. because Ron always knew, and many of you knew Ron, that this would never allow for our domestic needs and for what we need to do at home for our own domestic security. And you all know domestic tranquility is quite quite, I would say, fragile right now. When you look at domestic terrorism, when you look at the rise of white supremacists in this country, when you look at what is taking place as it relates to Black and brown people and what has happened since Donald Trump, I think the rest of the world knows that we do have a lot of work to do here in America also. And so we have to make sure that we have the budgets to allow for peace building in the United States. And I'm really proud to carry the Department of Peace Building legislation. But last year, you know, we got over 90 some votes, 94, 92, 94 votes. And this was first time around on the 10% cut, which was only, what, $74 billion? Was it 74, 72, $74 billion? And that's nothing when it comes to the Pentagon spending. We have, and know that there's more than that in waste, fraud, and abuse. And so minimally 74 billion, 10%. I mean, I am working with the Poor People's Campaign, and many of you know we introduced our resolution calling for a $350 billion cut. And we can track where those cuts can come from in terms of outdated weapon systems, in terms of waste, fraud, and abuse, you know, in terms of all of the excessive spending. We don't even have the Pentagon audited yet. And that's something we've been working on for years. And so in our own, and I want to quote this, in 2015, the Pentagon's own analysis identified, mind you, 125 billion in efficiency savings. And this report, of course, was buried when it came out, but we have it. And we know that in 2018, the Pentagon spent nearly $1 billion for its first ever audit, 28 years later. And guess what? It failed, mind you. So spent $1 billion, 28 years later to conduct an audit, and that audit fails. Today, the Pentagon is the only federal agency unable to pass an audit enabling the continuation of waste, fraud, and abuse. So we've got to do this, my brothers and sisters. We have to do this. The time has come, and I think we're seeing more support now from Republicans for whatever reasons they have. We're trying to form, and thank you for helping us form these coalitions, because it's going to be you and outside groups who are fighting for our democracy and fighting for our national security that's going to make this happen. And I'm confident that we're going to get there. Finally, I'll just say, in terms of these forever wars, I want to thank you all for your support over the years. You know, 2001 was a rough year for all of us, for the country. So many people died. So many of our people are injured for life, long-term illnesses, disabilities, and recovering from 9/11 has been quite difficult. And we know, though, that after 9/11, what took place, and I couldn't vote for any kind of an authorization that would give any president the authority to go to war forever. And that has created a state of perpetual forever wars. Now we're at and you know, I've tried to repeal it with your help a dozen times. We have our resolutions to repeal the 2001 and 2002. We put appropriations amendments into the bill. We passed them in the committee. We passed them on the floor. Of course, the bills get to the Senate and they take them out. But we have a lot of support in the Senate now. So hopefully for the repeal measures 2001 and 2002, we will be able to do this. We circulated a letter signed by Adam Schiff, myself, the vice chair of the Armed Services Committee, Anthony Brown, by Gregory Meeks, chair of Foreign Affairs, which really has the jurisdiction over this. So there's more support now in Congress, in the House, to repeal both of these measures. I was on the Democratic Party drafting committee, and there were 15 of us. We drafted the party platform, and I worked on that section. I know we didn't get everything we wanted. I worked with Marcy very closely on that, but we did get into the platform with support of the Biden people, the repeal of both 2001 and 2002 authorizations, and indicating in the platform that if in fact the president wants to use force and go to war, he has to come to Congress. He or she has to come to Congress and set forth the arguments for going to war or using force. And so we've got I have a lot of optimism. I have a lot of hope, but I tell you one thing, we have to hold everyone, this administration, accountable to making sure that what they agreed to, committed to, actually happens. So we shall see, but I'm confident and really excited about working with the Biden administration and our new Secretary of Defense. I've talked to him, Secretary Austin, to talk about how we move forward, knowing their realities. But I think it's time now for progressives, and especially all of you who are here today, to push the envelope, to make sure that members of Congress and this administration are held accountable to ending these forever wars and to investing into our domestic nation building and security here in our own country, because we need, especially during COVID, we need these resources for our children and for housing, unsheltered people, for affordable housing, for healthcare, for transportation and infrastructure, for everything you all know we need resources in America for. And they can't tell us anymore that they don't have the money to do what we need to do in America for our own country. So thank you all again. It's really been good seeing you. I really appreciate all of the work that you're continuing to do. And I hope sooner or later we get back to the Hill, because Medea, I look forward to seeing you in the halls and all of my CODEPINK followers and friends and supporters and colleagues, because it always warms my heart when I see CODEPINK, because you all, when I walk into these hearing rooms, I say, you're my conscience. I say, okay, Barbara, you got to push it. You got to push it all the way. So I miss you all, but thank you for having this tonight and having me here.
Well, thank you, Barbara. It's such a pleasure. It's such a great honor to have you with us. And as Alan said, your vote against the authorization of the use of military force against the invasion of Afghanistan will be a legacy vote. I hope you can stay with us for another 10 or 15 minutes. It's my honor and pleasure right now to introduce Congressman Mark Pocan, who was sworn in as the United States representative for Wisconsin's 2nd Congressional District, that includes Madison, in 2013, following 14 years in the Wisconsin State Assembly. A small business owner, a union member, and lifelong advocate for progressive causes, Mark serves on a number of committees. I won't name all of them, but they do include the House Appropriations Committee, where he sits on the Labor, Health and Human Services and Education Subcommittee. He also serves on the House Education and Labor Committee. Representative Pocan is the co-founder and co-chair of the Labor Caucus, and as Barbara Lee mentioned, he's also the co-founder with her and co-chair of the Defense Spending Reduction Caucus, which has a number of members now. And Mark, if you could be so gracious as to share with us some of the details about the caucus, how many members you have, what's the reaction, what you're looking at in terms of legislation and so forth, that would be terrific. So take it away.
Well, thank you very much. It's great to be here with everyone, and it's always great to be with Barbara Lee. Barbara is one of those people that I've always admired much before I was in Congress. It's not just that brave vote she took. It's not just her unrelenting efforts to get rid of the AUMF, but the subcommittee that she's now the chair on in appropriations is what Joe Biden calls an effing big deal, because she has an amazing capacity to address issues internationally that, as she said, she sat down with Betty McCollum and she's working on ways to be creative, to get some funds from defense, to do good things. I am looking for good things in the Middle East and around Palestine, working with her. There's so many things that we can now do. And Barbara's just a big deal, period. But that committee is really important, and it's an honor to work very closely with her in founding this caucus. I know many of you know Barbara, not as many of you may know me in Congress. So just if I can very quickly, I recently, last 4 years, was co-chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus. Some of you may know me from that, but going back to when my high school years, I remember I wrote a paper on the MX missile system, and Les Aspin was my congressperson at the time. And I remember as a senior in high school going to events he was at, asking him why he supported the MX missile system, and his staff very politely moving me away from the congressman. So it goes back a ways, and I want you to know that my license plate on my vehicle is Peace 78. 78 was my old state legislative district. So I just wanted to give you a few bona fides. And I actually met Medea years ago with Global Exchange traveling to Cuba. And I'm so glad that we're able to work again together now that I'm in Congress. So I just thought I'd put that out there so you know a little bit about background and the things that I've tried to do in the past. I think one of the interesting things when I got to Congress and started talking about, let's go after defense spending. It's crazy. We don't follow what we're doing. We spend money in crazy ways. It's done. That creates danger for people around the world. How do you address this? And the response I got very quickly was, well, we have the sequester in place. And even just in the last several years, someone who I won't name, who we all know is amazing progressive, and I asked the person about cutting defense spending, and their response was, well, if we do that, we'll cut education and healthcare. And I know that the person believes in the right things. The problem is that was what the sequester law did before I got to Congress. This law that said if you cut discretionary spending for non-defense or defense, you'd also cut it for non-defense. And it was then used as one of the reasons why we couldn't do this. So as Barbara so wonderfully put, she tried a few years ago to cut 1% from the defense budget, just 1%, and we had 73 votes. This last year, we worked with the Senate, with Bernie Sanders, and we said, let's cut 10%, and we got 93 votes. So maybe if we said cut 50%, we'd get 200 votes. I don't know if it works in that trajectory, but I think what it shows is this vote, we worked with you and many of your organizations, and that was the key part of it. This is something I learned through the Progressive Caucus. I don't love the term inside outside, but we are all part of a continuum. Some of us are fortunate enough to have votes in Congress. Some of you are very active with the grassroots, forcing constituents to reach out to their members to make sure that they know what you want to have said. And I think that's why we were so fortunate. And interestingly, of the 85 people that were up for re-election last year that voted for that cut, all 85 got reelected. So this is an important point, I think, as we talk to folks, why it's important to do this. I think, what I was surprised when we looked at the Trump years at a time of relative peace, and I'm flying my fingers for those of you who can't see me, we increased our defense spending 20%. And that made no sense. Why we would possibly do that at a time that we really should have had a whole lot of other efforts, especially under some of the rhetoric that Donald Trump said. So let me offer this about the caucus. We wanted to form a way to be as organized as possible, to work with groups that are on this call and other groups that are in the space to figure out how to kind of have a united effort, much like we did with the CPC on around healthcare, prescription drugs, et cetera, so we could be more powerful together rather than just individual voices doing this. And there's so much that we could potentially do. And right now we're figuring out the best strategies. So if I don't have the perfect answer for you, it's because we are kind of figuring this out right now. One thing we know is that the OCO fund, the Overseas Contingents Account, is essentially a slush fund, and it goes on top of the defense budget. One of the things that we have talked about, and we're going to have more conversations, is do you make them put that as part of the defense budget without increasing any defense spending? That alone would reduce about 10% of the defense budget. So we want to really kind of focus on that slush fund that OCO has been. We want to look at the private contracting that's out there, because we know that costs 2 to 3 times what personnel that we currently have. We think there's a good space to do some cuts on that front. We also want to look at the nuclear weapons budget and reevaluate the need for nuclear modernization. That was one thing Donald Trump had a big plan to do. And right now we are trying to figure out how to have the Biden administration look at this again and do something differently than putting all this money into nuclear weapons at a time that we should actually be doing just the opposite, right? This is a period where we should take advantage of this to cut some programs that don't need to be out there. So we're going to work within the caucus members, within the organizations that are out there to try to educate members. One of the things, as you know, we swim against, I think, is that the defense industry has been very smart. The defense industrial complex has something in everyone's district. And often people come and talk to you at this is a jobs thing. I have a company in my district that makes a piece, for those of you who can see, about as big as my pinky that goes on submarines. And every single year they come to my office to tell me to buy more submarines than the Department of Defense requested because they make that little piece. That's what we're fighting against. So part of what we want to do is be very strategic in our messaging, strategic in offering alternatives that you could be spending money on that people would find that meet their democratic values, and also some Republicans that have been sincere about just cutting spending. We think there are some efforts that we might be able to do with them. So while we don't have the full agenda of this, and this, or what we're doing, that's exactly what we're putting together. This is the right time to do that because we're approaching into the season where appropriations and the authorizations will come up. And let me just end with this, because I know you wanted us to go each for about 10 minutes and take questions. In addition to cutting defense spending, I think there's a number of other issues, and you led with it at the beginning, making sure that Yemen is done properly so that we can get rid of what's the largest catastrophe we have on the planet right now. We really need to address that and make sure we're doing it right. We need to keep working on the AUMF that Barbara has been such an amazing tireless advocate to take care of. There's a couple of them we need to do that with, and we can continue to work on that while we have the majorities that we have. And finally, the Middle East. I'll tell you, this is something I led the first delegation to Palestine that there's ever been in Congress. And I'll tell you, we came out with a lot of looking at what's going on there. And one of the things I'll never forget when we talked to folks in Palestine is they said, often Palestine is used as one of the recruiting tools for some who want to cause problems because of the way we're so lopsided on going into that conflict. We need to have it so that we have peace in that region. We need to be able to go into Gaza. We were denied going into Gaza. Over 98% of the water is undrinkable. Over half the people are on food assistance. The conditions there with COVID are just awful. We need to do more on that. And that's why one of the things I look at is in Barbara and her new powerful position, there's a lot of things we're going to do in addition to addressing the Pentagon spending, which absolutely must. And now the sequester is over. So we have the opportunity to actually address this. And we can use that as a very powerful argument, I think, to members as we look at this. But we want to do all the other things that fall in the lines of war and peace as well, and make sure that we have a more just world. So I'm just really happy to be here today. Again, I'm so happy to work with Barbara. She's just amazing to work with, as you already know that. But I think we've got some real potential this year to get some work done, and I look forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much, Congressman Pocan and Congresswoman Lee. And I wanted to just let everybody know who's on the call now that please, we hope you'll stay with us to the end because we're going to be calling our own representatives to urge them to join the Defense Spending Reduction Caucus. And we want everybody to be making those calls and sending those emails and let it percolate from the ground up. So first question will be asked by Garrett Reppenhagen, and he is the Executive Director of Veterans for Peace. Garrett.
Thanks, Marcy. Appreciate being invited on the call and getting this opportunity. CODEPINK has been a great ally with Veterans for Peace for a long time, as far as I can remember. We have a lot of members on the call tonight. I know Adrian Kenny, our national president, is on the line. A lot of the leaders in our working groups, chapter presidents are here. So thanks everyone for being here. I'm here mostly representing our climate crisis working group. It's our newest working group in Veterans for Peace, one of our biggest projects going on right now. And, you know, the working group sees 4 major connections between militarism and climate disaster. The massive carbon footprint that's directly responsible by the military, the expenditure of money, these resources that could be going to other places, racism, both global climate crisis and militarism disproportionately affect BIPOC communities, mostly in the global South, and wars for oil, our direct extractive colonialism and the protection of fossil fuels, transportation and extraction. So we see this military as a massive contributor to the climate crisis. It consumes most of our tax dollars that would allow us to build sustainable infrastructure and just transition. How do you plan on linking the climate crisis to your campaign to reduce military spending? And a secondary question, we've been trying to get a hold of John Kerry. Obviously, he has roots with Vietnam Veterans Against the War, and you know, so does Veterans for Peace. And as acting czar in charge of this climate crisis and part of the National Security Council, as a new generation of military veterans, I would love to speak to him about this issue. So if you have any access to him or his staff, we'd love to get connected. Thank you.
So Mark, Barbara?
Yeah.
Question,
Well,
how are you going to link the cuts to the climate crisis?
Sure. Well, I think for some of us, I know I support the Green New Deal, and we're going to have resources to fund our climate initiatives. And I think quite a bit of our resources and our funding, of course, is in the military budget. And if part of the 10%, and we haven't decided, again, Mark laid out some of the accounts and some of the places where we may want to cut, but we haven't designated where we would want it to go. But we are saying that it should go for all of the actual needs that are going to be protecting our climate, protecting our national security, our domestic security. And so I would think that part of the strategy around climate and this 10% cut would be to use some of these resources into a Green New Deal and some of the strategies that our climate initiatives embody.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, I completely agree. I think this is one way that we can strategically go to people who care about the environment, who maybe haven't talked about defense spending, and say, well, you know, if you really want us to be able to try to help encourage to get these dollars for whatever it is, because I'm a strong supporter of the Green New Deal as well, this is a way to open their ears to some of our messaging, because they're going to get a lot back home from the defense industry, because they have such a footprint in every district. But another idea that I think is part of why we're still, you know, doing the formulation of what we want to as a group, and it's so important we do it as a group, is, you know, if there's no question, and it's the best interest of the defense of this nation is to have to address climate change, right? That should be right part of that conversation. And if we can redirect funds, just as Barbara talked about redirecting funds for some of the peace efforts that she could do through her subcommittee, if we can redirect some defense funds for climate change, it still is, in fact, it's the real defense of the nation, right? We could argue. And I think that's another strategy that we can put forward. So we're still developing all of this, but I think that's another way that we can try to help make the bigger, broader case on how to at least stop spending that kills people, that goes towards weapon systems, that goes to defense contractors, and instead putting it towards real defense of the United States.
Marcy, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was going to suggest maybe a hearing on the impact, the footprint, the global footprint of the Pentagon budget might be an educational tool. All right, next question.
Well, we have a number of questions that just came in, and I just wanted to hand it over to Medea to ask the first question, and then I'll ask the representative a question.
So I'll put a couple of them together because we're going to be making calls after you leave us. So if we could say what it means to join the caucus. Does it mean they are committed to some kind of reduction of the Pentagon budget? Is it a 10% reduction? And where could people find a list of who's already on it so they don't go after people who have already signed?
Great questions, and I don't have some answers for you because I should have brought the list of the names with, and I don't have that. So I'm going to apologize. I thought that might have been something that we had already passed on to you folks. So I'm going to apologize and take credit for not doing that. But I think the argument for anyone who joins a caucus is it's a way that we can share information and share bills that are being introduced and share strategies on how to reduce the Pentagon budget. So anyone that thinks that there's a better way to spend our tax dollars, whether it be healthcare, housing, the environment, education, you name it, they should want to help us to try to redirect some of the such a large amount of tax dollars that go to defense. So I think really the argument is to folks, you know, we need to, after a decade of not being able to reduce defense spending because of the sequester, we finally have an opportunity. This is the perfect time to join a caucus that can do this without cutting those other valuable programs and actually finding new revenues for those programs by cutting defense. And it's a great way to work with others in Congress who share those values.
Yeah, and let me say, it also is a way to educate members of Congress about the defense budget, because not everyone is so focused as Mark is, or myself, or you, on defense spending. And I'm finding that members are shocked when I talk to them about some of the waste, fraud, and abuse, for example, some of the OCO, which Mark laid out, some of the nuclear aspects of the defense budget. They are shocked to know that. And so I think part of what we have to do, what you can help us do, is educate members. But what I've also found is that, as Mark said, if you have a jobs, you know, a defense contractor in their districts, they get very, very defensive because no one wants to be responsible for anyone losing their jobs. I mean, bottom line. And so we've got to figure out a way to identify members who have these defense and they purposely cite their industries in members of Congress's districts who they know won't take on the defense budget. And so we've got to strategize about how you bring those members on board, because it boils down to, and I've seen this over and over again with many members, especially even members in the seat in the Black Caucus, is like, I'm with you, but I've got these jobs, these 300 jobs in my district, and there's no way I'm going to put them in jeopardy. And so we've got to figure out a way to address that argument, because I really believe that's one of the biggest impediments to bringing around more members to join and to vote for a 10% cut.
So Hanieh, just before turning to you, I just want to say thank you, Paul Kavika-Martin, for putting the list in of the, I think it's 19 members who you put there. And Paul is with Peace Action, another organization that does terrific work on these issues. And also a shout out to Beyond War, who's director, and many others, David Swanson, are on this call tonight as well. Thank you.
Thank you to you both, Representative Lee and Pocan. I do have one question for each. To you, Representative Lee, given that the Israeli government uses some of the arms that our taxpayers buy them to commit war crimes and other crimes against the Palestinian people, and continues to steal Palestinian land that is supposed to be part of Palestinian state, and tortures and imprisons Palestinian youth, women, and men under military occupation, administrative orders, meaning without charging them a crime, shouldn't that 3.8 billion year of unconditional aid for military arms be the #1 on the chopping block? And then I'll go to a question for Representative Pocan. We so appreciate your work and Barbara's in the attention that you pay to the horrific human rights violations that Israel is imposing on Palestinians aided by the US military aid. What efforts can you pursue to hold Israelis accountable for deliberate withholding of COVID vaccines to Palestinians?
Well, for me, let me just say, I'm not looking at anything right now on the chopping block other than the defense spending, the 10% cut. That's what we're here talking about. I certainly have, and you know, and everyone knows that I have fought for a two-state solution, justice for the Palestinian state, making sure humanitarian assistance is delivered, and making sure that the settlements stop and that U.S. policy is complied with. And so we'll have to sort all of this through, but I am one who said early on that I'm going to continue with my work to support a two-state solution. And hopefully we'll be able to see peace in the Middle East one day and justice for the Palestinian people.
Thank you. You know, I just wanted to remind everybody that next week we will be focusing on the topic of Israel-Palestine, or Palestine-Israel, as I like to say. We'll have Omar Badar, a political analyst, with us, Huwaida Araf, a founder of the International Solidarity Movement, our own CODEPINK Ariel Gold, and Esty Chandler of Jewish Voice for Peace. So we'll be talking about one state versus two state, ICC, and everything. Do join us next week as well. Thank you.
And Representative Pocan?
Sure, thank you. So first of all, there is a letter going around right now that members are signing specifically around COVID vaccinations in Palestine. So hopefully there'll be a good number of members, and that might be another thing worth people reaching out to their member of Congress and asking them to sign on to that letter to try to affect that. But I think one of the things that it's time we seriously look at is tying conditions to funding, specifically around things like expansion, going into stealing Palestinian land, et cetera. When Representative Castro was running for the chair of the relevant committee, that was one of the conditions I kind of had talked to him about, because I thought it was important that we start considering doing that. And I think we've got to put some conditions on, because what's going on right now is clearly not towards a path of peace. Hopefully, Joe Biden did a few things already that I think were positive in this area, including, re-recognizing the PLO and some others for some of the work that needs to have to be able to happen. But I think there are a number of efforts that we can do, and hopefully maybe even through the Appropriations Committee.
And speaking of sanctions, and I'm hoping that we would have your support also, Representative Pocan, on this initiative that we're launching for the 100 anti-sanctions campaign. Representative Lee, the question is, there was a letter that was issued by Representative Ilhan Omar and Chuy Garcia, urging the Biden campaign to lift the sanctions on countries that are most impacted by COVID: Iran, Yemen, Syria, Zimbabwe, Cuba, Venezuela, as well as North Korea. And so we're hoping to be able to get this initiative launched. And I'm just wondering, where do you think it would be most effective for us to put the pressure? And if Representative Lee, you also signed on to this letter, if you could perhaps assist us with this, that would be great. Where do you think it's necessary for us to put the pressure at this point?
The letter was addressed right to the president?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably the Secretary of State and to the president. I think that's where that's who's going to make the decision. I'm not sure if it's going to be at any other level. Sanctions. Yeah, I'm pretty sure this would come under I know the president, he can make that decision, but I believe it's Secretary of State. But I would have to get back to you on where the leverage below the president would be. I'm not certain, but I believe it's Secretary of State.
Thank you. And do we have more time for a couple more questions?
I have another question here. The question is, can we get any Republicans to be on board for any defense cuts? And there was something we saw recently where there was a Republican advocating for a 15% cut in the civilian, it's in the military. Is that something that's a good thing? And also a question was, might there be a similar caucus in the Senate?
Yes, and I just want to interject, that was a bill by Ken Calvert, and he's in California. And the bill was to cut, rather than actually cutting people, laying them off, it was just not to fill jobs if people retire, to give them incentives to retire early.
I think there's a lot of opportunities, but I believe it's probably going to be a little more issue by issue when it comes to Republicans. I had one member during this from my state come up to me and said, a Republican member said, well, if you'd have did 5%, I could have voted for that, but I just couldn't do 10%. Well, because at least for some who are conservative and not QAnon or Tea Party necessarily, or maybe even some of the Tea Party, if you really think that there's too much spending that's going unchecked, and clearly defense is the biggest culprit of every federal agency out there, that's something we can talk to people. But it also might be on specific ideas. If you're spending too much on contractors that cost 2 or 3 times having something done by our current military personnel, well, then that's obviously wasteful. So I think it will be a case by case, but I do think this is a strategy, and Barbara's been especially, outspoken about this because she knows how to get things done because she's got a long career of getting things done. And I think, there are going to be some opportunities to do that.
Yeah, one of the things we're looking at is the National Taxpayers Union. They issued a report calling for about a $72 billion cut. They certainly aren't Democrats, the National Taxpayers Union. And so we're looking, and I would advise you and urge you to look at their report if you haven't and see, because they were very specific on which cuts they would recommend. One was, of course, OCO. And so when I saw that, and Mark and I are talking about this and staff to see if, in fact, this provides us some opportunities to bring some Republicans along. But the report was recently released, I think last week before last, but it tracked a lot of what we're doing in terms of the $72 billion cut that they suggest.
And don't forget Americans for Prosperity. Not that I have a whole lot of things in common with Americans for Prosperity, actually have advocated for cutting in this area as well. So I do think there's some ways to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do have another question from Richard here in the chat for both of you. US sanctions on Venezuela and other countries are weapons of war. Don't you think that they should be considered a part of the defense budget and should not, of course, exist?
Repeat that again. UN sanctions against Venezuela should not be part of the defense budget?
So US sanctions of Venezuela and the other countries are weapons of war. Do you think that they should be considered a part of the defense budget? And if not, should that exist?
Oh, I'd have to think about that. That's very interesting. It gives us another way to look at the defense budget. And I think there are many ways that we need to broaden our definition of defense and looking at the budget. And this may be one, but I think it's very, I'm going to think about it. I haven't even, who asked this question? I think it was really good.
Richard Burrell, if I'm hoping I'm pronouncing the last name right. Richard, yes.
Yeah. No, I think that, but I really think we have to look at the defense budget in a new way. And also what constitutes national security in a new way, because as we know, just witnessed it January 6th. I mean, this is, a national security threat coming from within. So there are new ways I think that we have to look at the defense budget, and this is an interesting new way.
Yeah, I would concur with Barbara. In fact, I would just add, I think there's a lot of different things that actually have a fiscal impact to call defense budget. Sometimes I think it's a little less direct with sanctions on how it affects tax dollars versus other dollars to be part of a budget. But public health, broadband. I mean, think of things we've learned in the last year that are absolutely about, the national defense of this country, that if you could redirect dollars would also be a win in what we're trying to accomplish. So it's all part of, I think, some potential moving forward.
Thank you. And I guess that would bring me to my last question. Would everyone who joins the caucus be committed to a 10% budget cut?
We haven't, when you're a new caucus, you're just glad to get members, to be perfectly honest, who share some values with you. And we're not even sure if 10% cut is the issue yet for this year, right? We haven't had that conversation. What I do think is whatever conversation we have, it would be great to be able to work with all the groups and with the Senate and the House on a singular message. Because I think the reason we did so well on the 10% cut this time was because we had a simple, singular message to both houses that a lot of organizations, including CODEPINK, was helping us on. And I think, that's going to be the key operative, but it may turn out that it's related to OCO because that's about 10%, but the language might be around that. It could be very specific programs. I just don't think we're ready to know that yet, but we haven't had any conditions on membership.
Thank you so much, Congressman Pocan and Congresswoman Lee. Now's the time to say anything else you want to add, or a call to action, anything that you feel we would benefit from. In terms of
well, I just will close by thanking you all very much for giving us a chance to be with you tonight, and just say that this is the moment that we have been fighting for so many years, and I think we can do some remarkable things. It's going to be hard. Nothing's easy. Change is not easy at all, but I think your help with this Defense Reduction Caucus, Defense Spending Reduction Caucus, will be really historic. And I think we can make some progress. And I really have been thinking about how we form coalitions with other members who may or may not be necessarily part of the Progressive Caucus, who would see the rational need to join with us, and they're going to do that because of you. So thank you again, Mark. Great seeing you and being with you. And I guess we're going to talk next week about a few of the items we talked about tonight. But it's really exciting to be able to work with Mark and to really tackle this in a very structured way now, within a structured but informal way to address defense spending. Finally on the Hill. So thank you all again.
Thank you, Barbara Lee. And Mark, anything you want to add at the end?
I'll just add, back at it, Barbara, with everything times 10, she's amazing. And you all know that already, but I love working with her. I just think the most important thing to stress is we have this incredibly unique opportunity. The sequester is done. It was in place for 10 years. And the excuse we ran into so often is if you cut defense discretionary spending, you also had to cut non-defense discretionary spending. Finito, done. This is our opportunity to be able to move forward and not have those two tied. So because of that, we're going to hopefully work all together and have a good strategy with a simple message, understanding there's always so many things more that we would all like to do. But I think if we can keep it working in both houses, in a single kind of simple or a few messages that we are all getting our members to work with us on, we'll be much stronger, just like we were on that 10% vote. So I'm excited about the potential we have this year.
And we're excited to be working with you. Thank you so much. Excuse me, Congressman Mark Pocan from Wisconsin and Congresswoman Barbara Lee from Northern
We want to give
California.
people a chance to unmute to
Yes.
show their love.
Yeah,
Love you.
everybody can say thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank you.
We love you.
Singing.
Gratitude.
Wonderful.
Everybody.
Thank you.
We want you to stay.
Thank you.
Now we want you to stay to do the action, so don't leave.
That's right. We're talking to all the, we have 263 people with us right now. At the height of tonight, I think we had about 230. But anyway, for now, if you mute yourselves, that would be appreciated. Mary is going to post in the chat, if you will, Mary, the action alert, or maybe we can share this screen. I think that worked best last time. And we have an action alert where we're calling our representatives, our congressperson, and we're emailing the person as well. So it's a twofer, to ask them to join the House Defense Spending, you want to call it military reduction, but anyway, Defense Spending Reduction Caucus is the official name. So we're going to put it in our own words if you like, use your own voice, but let's get the message out there. So here's the Capitol Hill switchboard number, and just go for it. Thank you.
So does everybody understand what they're supposed to do now?
We don't.
Marcy, you want to just go
Okay,
around?
I'm sorry. So right now, I'm sorry, at the end of our calls, our Zooms, we have an action that addresses what we were talking about. So tonight, what we're doing is we're calling our congressional representative and asking that person to join the House Defense Spending Reduction Caucus. So you'll see there's a script for calling your rep. Hi, my name is, I'm calling from zip codes, so forth, to urge you, my Congress member, to join, so forth. And
Is that available on CODEPINK website?
It will be. I'm not sure if it is right now, but you know what?
Easy for all of us to go
We
there.
have a Google group, and if you're not in that and you want to join it, I urge you to do so. Just email Mary@codepink.org, because I usually send out this action either immediately following the Zoom or the next day. So it'll be available.
Can you make it larger?
And Marcy, can you explain what you do when you call the switchboard number?
Oh, yeah, so I'm going to call the switchboard, and it might take a little while for them to answer, but somebody will pick up, and then I'll just say, I'd like to speak. My congressperson is Congressman Carbajal, Salud Carbajal. So I'll ask for his office. If you're not sure who your congressperson is, and that's fine, we have a link, a Common Cause link where you can put in your zip code or your address and find who that person is. So then after talking to the switchboard person, I'm going to be transferred to Carvajal's office. And then I'm just going to read the script, or I can say whatever I want, in my own voice that addresses this request, which is to join the new Defense Spending Reduction Caucus. Why? Because our $740 billion military budget is wasteful, larger than the military budgets of the next 8 countries, consuming over 60% of our discretionary dollars, funding endless wars and weapons production. How do you join? Tell your representative to join the new caucus. Please contact Representative Pocan, and there's the number. Okay. And then when we get done calling with that message, there's a script. So that involves, again, going to your congressperson's website, and you can find it at the link above, the Common Cause link. And then they usually have a contact page. You click on the contact page and you just send them an email, and there's a script for that as well. Feel free to use that, or put it in your own words if you like.
Okay.
Can you
Okay.
enlarge in the script? Can you enlarge in the script, Marcy?
Mary, is there a way to make it larger?
Yeah, it's very.
I can try. I think if I make it larger, it might not all show at once.
So,
It's just so tiny.
2-9.
Can you put it in the chat so we can copy it?
Yeah, she can do that.
Good.
And we went from 250 people to 199. We're urging for you all to stay and make these calls because they actually work and they make a huge difference. So,
can you email this to those of us who signed up to come to this event?
We will. It's usually posted on the CODEPINK Congress website the next day.
Okay.
So if you just Google CODEPINK Congress tomorrow, it should be up.
The action is already up.
Actually, the action is already up. Yeah.
I'll send the link again. This is just to email them, but you can call them with your own script. You can probably just condense the email. Yeah, Carly just shared it too. Thank you, Carly.
Okay, I will mute it.
I just called my representative and didn't follow this script except to say defense budget cuts in the amount you suggested.
Lauren Underwood's office, please?
Left a message for my representative Langevin in Rhode Island. Are we calling senators tonight as well?
This is only for House of Representatives because they're the only ones that can join this caucus. But on our website, we have plenty of other actions for senators if you are feeling energized.
So everyone, this is Alan here, and I'm going to go because I'm going to go now jump over to a town hall with my congressman, Jimmy Gomez. So if anybody is in Jimmy Gomez's district and wants the link to this town hall, I am putting my email in the chat. And I've left the message for him in DC, and I will pass this message along to him at the town hall.
I think I'm going to go now. I didn't get the whole of your script in when I left a message for Stephen Lynch. But there's nothing else to do if this bill is in front of the senators from Massachusetts. Thank you very much for this chance.
Thanks, everyone. Good night. Good work. Appreciate you all.
Thank you, Garrett. Appreciate you as well. Great question.
Garrett. And thank you, Marcy, Medea, Hanieh, and
yeah.
everybody. Take care.
Love the introduction.
Thank you, Marcy. It was an honor. Thank you.
We are down to 121 people. So that's 100 phone calls going out. That's fantastic.
And just to say, I cannot talk if it's not muted, so I will call on my own tomorrow. I unmuted to say that. I wrote it in the chat. Good night, everybody. It's been great being here.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you next week.
Yes, definitely next week. Okay. Stop video.
I just called Congress.
This script is available on the website?
Yes, on the CODEPINK website.
All right, I will share out. Thank you all so much. Thank you, CODEPINK.
Jonathan.
Thank you for joining us, John. And also, I wanted to ask everybody if you could share what's on the CODEPINK website, which is basically this action alert with your friends on social media. Let's get a lot of people calling and emailing.
Marcy?
Yes.
This is Ruth Strauss. I had drawn up a list of both the representatives and the senators that had voted against or voted, for impeachment. They're getting into a lot of trouble with their respective states and Republican parties. And on our election integrity thing with Harvey Wasserman, I sent it to him. Also, Jamie Raskin's number, Liz Cheney's number. So if that is anything that you think would be interesting to post or send out, I can send it to you. I just feel that these people did the honorable thing and they're getting a lot of mud thrown at them.
Well, I would just encourage you, Ruth, thank you, to post it in the chat here.
Okay. It's too long to do that, but I'll post my email address, and if anybody's interested, they can email me.
Great idea.
Thanks.
This is Medea. I just want to say I actually got a person.
Wow.
A real person at my congressman's office tonight at 9 p.m.
Which congressperson?
It was Frederica Wilson in Florida, in Miami, and had a nice long conversation. So, hey.
Really? Hey, you made a friend.
Good night.
I think that's amazing. And I would love to know if there are other people from Maine on this call, because I think that we're more effective if we can kind of work together on Jared Golden, who told me personally that he wanted to reduce the defense bill. And, he's been a veteran, and he's in the really weird second district here with a lot of Trump people. So I just think if there are people from Maine here that we can kind of get together.
Great idea. Yeah. So I think, if you want to put that in the chat, I encourage you to. And I think maybe next time for our Zoom at the outset, we can say, ask people to put their states in the chat.
And Ridgely, we can connect you with people separately if you contact me or Carly or Mary.
Okay. Great, I'll do that. Super.
And
I
Marcy?
have a question. Do you have any idea how many letters it takes, how many phone calls to get the typical member of Congress to consider doing something different?
I've read 30.
30.
That sounds
Okay.
low. I've heard 30 phone calls.
Okay.
Well, it really depends what it is. If it's an easy ask, about 5 or 6 would do the job.
I know. I asked my congressman to sign on to Meeks's resolution to block Saudi weapon sales. I think there were about 2 or 3 of us who asked him, and he signed on. I think he felt, okay, that's an easy one.
And we just got Meeks to sign on to a letter around the Cuba, lifting sanctions, and he signed on.
Yeah.
And I just emailed my representative, Nanette Berrigan in the LA Harbor area. And I'm going to send this every Thursday. We have an indivisible meeting here, and they really need to be, brought into the anti-war game. They aren't, but I think some of them are inclined to be. So I'm going to let them know also.
Great idea. Maybe they can spread it around the state.
Hello, this is Joe Maislish from LA. I noticed that Representative Lee brought up the jobs concern, saying that many people are worried about job loss in their district. So when I wrote Jimmy Gomez, my representative in Congress, I suggested that he consider joining if he hadn't already joined, and that maybe they could make the name caucus to shift money and jobs from military to other uses. I wonder if I'll hear anything back.
Very good.
I'll check, because that concern, I think I mentioned in the smaller meeting earlier this week, that concern is on many, many people's minds, many Congress people's minds. And I think that showing that we're open to really talking about a shift would help. Anyway, I'll see. I plan to continue my experiments with that, and of course, let you guys know.
Thank you, Joseph. I wished we had more time tonight to talk to Representative Pocan about the jobs issue, since he's on the Labor Caucus, Labor Committee. But we can follow up with him as well. Done and done. I love all these things on the chat.
Okay, I'm going to hit it. Thank you so much for doing this. I'll see you next week.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks so much. I feel like this is so inspiring. I just love it. So I want to keep at it and keep us all working together. And I've been thinking main piece action is pretty timid, and feels like this is a really good thing to kind of maybe try to get some of the other peace groups in Maine to work around. We have strong Veterans for Peace here. And
yeah, we'd love to have them. Please invite them to our call. You'll get a blast about it. Maybe you can share it with them for next week.
Ridgely, I sent you a message with my email. I've got a good friend in Maine that's a peace activist. Shoot me an email, I'll connect you up.
Oh my God, I hope I really know how to save this stuff. Okay.
Oh, it's easy. Just all you do is go down to where you type in the chat.
Yeah, there's a little cool square that I've been clicking the whole evening. Save that.
Right. Click on those 3 dots and then click on Save Chat. The whole like 12 pages will show up in your document folder. It'll create a folder called Zoom, and the chat will be in there.
Well, this is really exciting. So I hope this has staying power.
Do you know Owl's Head, Maine? Do you know Owl's Head?
Yeah, I'm north. That's kind of Boston light.
Well, friend lives in Owl's Head, but she's a longtime peace activist. And
Yeah,
I'm glad
we
to
need
connect you
Shelley
up.
Pingree on this too. How come Shelley Pingree hasn't signed up? She's in
Oh,
the
yeah.
Progressive Caucus. Why isn't she on this subcommittee?
You know, I've been reaching out to Jayapal's office. I haven't heard back just to see if she can give this an extra push, you know, as the new chair of the Congressional Progressive Caucus.
But yes, Shelley Pingree should be on, so maybe tomorrow, well, you could call her Alphas too.
I'm in the 2nd district, but
That's okay, Maine's cozy.
yeah, not as cozy as you think. I'm in Trump country, not in Belfast, but.
Can I give a quick shout out to some of our Muslim allies on this call as well? I see my sister Sarah Dean. I saw Sister Moina earlier. Thank you for being here and your support. Really, this is really helpful that we're all coming together for these initiatives. So I thank you for representing the community.
Yay, thank you.
Yes, thank you. How many are still with us?
We have 59.
Oh, great. Let's keep going. I'm in the middle of writing an email. This is probably my 2nd or 3rd email to my congressperson to do this or that.
For those still on the call, next week is on Palestine and Israel. The week after that, I think is, we have Cuba coming up, then Venezuela, North Korea, China. So a lot of good ones. Invite your friends.
So Medea, how come I don't get these just naturally in my inbox?
It may be in your spam.
Well, it doesn't go out to the whole CODEPINK list.
That's true.
You know, I get these invites from Mass Peace Action. I don't live in Massachusetts anymore, and they do unbelievable kind of webinars.
Well, originally, if you're signed up on the CODEPINK site for CODEPINK Congress, then it will come to you.
Okay.
Every week.
Okay.
Can we get Facebook events done for these? Because that's where most of my calendar shows up. And I really do a lot of organizing and networking, inviting and sharing Facebook events. So that would be really helpful.
So it's going to some of our personal Facebook. It's like it goes to my personal one live, but you may have it on CODEPINK.
I mean, like a Facebook invitation.
Oh, an invitation.
So that I can invite people. I have a Facebook page called The Left of Center, and I add any events, any Facebook events that I think are of interest to progressives. I add Facebook events to that page.
I'm just wondering, Mary, if we create a Facebook page for CODEPINK Congress, can she then share these invitations? Easily?
So to have invitations, you need an event, which is distinct.
Well, this is an event. This would be an event. Every
So
Tuesday.
yeah, we could make events. Yes, I'm not sure if there's a way to make events recurring on Facebook. That would be
there is.
easiest,
You
but-
can, Mary, I can work with you on setting it up
I
actually.
think that would be helpful.
Yeah.
You know, get more people involved.
Yeah, that's a good idea. I will
Great
do that.
idea, Hillary. Thank you.
I need help. I came in late, and Sarah Jacobs is my representative. My name is Kathy Huart. But I didn't get the whole message that I want to write to her.
It's here on the screen, but it's also at the CODEPINK Congress website portal. If you just Google CODEPINK Congress, you'll see it.
Okay, CODEPINK. Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question, and it may help you. There's no way I can copy what's on the website from here. Is there something you can do to let a person copy this?
On the website, you can't copy it?
No, it won't. My browser, I can't copy what you have up there.
Oh, but at the CODEPINK Congress website, you probably can.
Okay, I can
And it's up
copy it
there.
because
Code
I
Pink.
want to
Up there.
have it right.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
Okay, on CODEPINK website. Okay.
CODEPINK Congress. CODEPINK Congress. You'll see a
Okay.
little box and it'll say something about ask your representative to join the House Defense Spending Reduction.
Oh,
That would help. Okay, Code Pink Congress.
Yes, or the list or the link that Mary just put up in the chat.
Hi, everyone. This is Mila Reason in Santa Monica, where Ed Lieu is my congressperson. And I left the call because I wanted to call from my computer, and I left a message at his office in Washington, DC. But I put something in the chat, but I wanted to let everyone know that, during Marcy Winograd's 3 runs for Congress.
Do we have to say 3?
Well, you were such a wonderful leader on so many issues.
Well, thank you.
Always,
we're there every step of the way.
And you never failed to, you always pointed out the connection between war and climate catastrophe. And you really led the way on that, Marcy. It was, I was trying to remember the exact wording that we used.
Actually, the article I wrote was titled The Green New Deal. That was in 2010.
I remind people about that all the time. We absolutely came up with that Green New Deal. It was later adopted by one of your challengers, and as if it was her own, but
that's okay.
Yeah, it was okay. But you've been such a tremendous leader on so many issues, and I just wanted to express my gratitude.
Thank you, Mylan, for all your support and work as well. We're in this together.
Hi, this is Mary Eleazar, Baltimore Peace Action member, and many other things like CODEPINK and National Lawyers Guild. Tomorrow I will call the office of our fairly new Congress member, Kwesi Mfume. Yeah, and give the info to him. And hello to Regina Sneed, who I haven't seen or heard of in 20 years or more.
Amazing. Hi, Mary.
Can I just tag on and say that Baltimore, Maryland Peace Action is sending people from Kwesi Mfume's district to meet with him on Monday.
I thought it was Friday.
We have about 7 or 8 people that are committed to attending this meeting.
I thought it was Friday.
It got moved.
Oh, really? Oh, goodness. Thank you.
Good information sharing.
Hey.
So on the CODEPINK website, is there the whole background of the efforts to reduce the defense?
Yeah, we have on the CODEPINK Congress portal. You have to call CODEPINK. We have cut the Pentagon budget, and we detail where we would cut. Our cuts are the most radical. We're calling for a 73% cut, over $500 billion, right? But you can get an idea of what that money could be used for as well. That's also explained.
The history of the congressional efforts to reduce this. I mean, it sounded
we don't have that.
That they've been working at this for a while, and that they were talking about some figures of how many reps had signed on over the years, and I feel like that information is could be useful.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Sure, we could put that together, but the most important to know is that 93 Congress people did sign onto that amendment for the 10% cut last year. So that gives us a baseline.
Yeah. I feel like this is such a, and when you talk about intersection, I really feel like this would appeal to folks who are concerned about the budget, senators and the reps. So,
yes. Now, Ridgely, do you mind sending me your contact information? Marcy at codepink.org.
Are you talking to me? No, I'll send it to you.
Thank you.
The poor guy, David, trying to get off the call. When you just leave, and then another button will come up, another red one, that says something like right? He's trying to get off but can't get off. So
I just removed
you
him,
did. Okay, thanks.
kicked him out.
I'm sorry to pop back on. I'm just looking for that script to be able to share out to other people. And I couldn't find it on the site.
Okay, if you go to the site, it'll say something like.
Well, Mary just put it in the link in the chat.
Yeah, it's not the CODEPINK general site, it's CODEPINK Congress. And there's a little box that says, ask your rep to support defense cuts or something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think maybe next time it would be helpful if at the beginning or periodically to the Zoom, we highlight that website, that web page, and kind of navigate it with people so they see what's available.
See, Marcy,
Hi,
I signed a thing on that site, but is that an email being sent or is it just signing a letter?
I think, Medea, it's like a petition, yeah?
Yeah, like a petition. So how would I actually take that and put it into an email too?
Well, you could just use what we have here or on our CODEPINK Congress site. What we have.
I think I was on the CODEPINK Congress site.
And it has like little boxes for different actions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that actually sending an email or is that just signing a letter?
You're talking about two different things. One is taking you to the DSR caucus, and that's the petition. Marcy's saying go to codepink.org Congress.
Okay, I got the wrong one. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll look again.
Questions kind of completely off the subject. This is Farzad from Sacramento area. Since I saw the number of people on the site dwelling, so I thought I'd just throw this thing that I was curious about for a while. When Mike Flynn during Trump's thing, was contacting supposedly, I guess that I understand there's two questions or two subjects. One of them was to ask the Russians to delay the voting on the UN Security Resolution against Israel annexation. And, that seemed like kind of switching the subject from Russiagate to Israeli Gate, but I didn't really see that get a lot of traction even on the left. I was just curious if anybody has any thoughts on it.
Say that again. So you were wondering.
Yeah, like, during the, when Trump was elected, but not in power yet, Michael Flynn supposedly contacted Russians, and then, they used that as a Russian gate thing, and all that. Yeah. And from what I understand, the two reasons he was contacting the Russians, number one was to ask the Russians to intervene in the UN Security Council to delay a resolution that was condemning Israel for the illegal annexations, because Obama had refused to veto it. So it was going to go through, and they wanted the Russians' help to delay that vote until Trump was in power, which was a few weeks later, so he can veto it. So, things like that. There were issues that are so, sometimes it could be, sort of major if people knew about it. But I'm kind of like surprised that even on the left, I didn't hear too many people, talk about it. I don't know if I got the information wrong, or I'm just curious.
Medea, any thoughts?
It doesn't sound right to me.
I guess we would have to follow up to find out more about that. But, next week we'll have a full-on discussion about Palestine and Israel.
Sure.
And what we can do.
Yeah, sorry. Anyway, I know it's completely off the subject, but I just thought, there was an occasion to bring it up and ask, a lot of expert people on the line, so I figured.
Okay. Hi, am I here? Can I say hello? Not sure.
Yes, Marcia, you're here.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yep. Okay. Hello. Yeah. I'm here in Melbourne, Australia, where I've lived for over 30 years, but I'm a dual citizen. I still vote there. I still follow what's going on there very closely. So thanks for everything you're doing. I agree that it's a good idea to put in the chat earlier and more often the right link, because I had a little trouble finding my way also. I was looking for your script. I mean, I'm happy to do my own emails and calls too, but it's useful, and obviously it helps people. So that's a great idea. Put it in there more often.
We'll do that.
Yeah, it's so interesting. It's been one hell of a year for everybody, and it's really interesting looking on, you know, after living out of the country for 30 years, and how difficult it is for so many Americans still to get their heads around the really basic, obvious thing that if you would reduce that bloody inflated military budget,
That's so true.
which is not defense, more money